Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of On the House with Spartan Invest. Today, I'm really excited. We have a special guest joining us today. He is actually one of our very own investors. He's been investing with Spartan Invest since 2019. Tom Spargo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
So, Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself, just what you do for a living, where you're from, and then how you first came to hear about Spartan Invest.
For a job, my day job is I am I guess you could call management consultant. I help companies, specifically Japanese companies, to do business mostly with startups here in California. I've been doing this for almost 25 years now. It's a great gig, and I enjoy it. And I basically came to real estate investing, 2019, actually, no, 2018, I should say, just as part of, I'd been an investor in lots of other asset classes for many, many years, stocks and fixed income and things like that. I even dabbled in a little bit of, back when peer-to-peer lending was big, I experimented with that a little bit. But eventually I started to realize that, there was one big hole in my investing portfolio, and that is I didn't have any real estate. And looked into it. In 2018, I made my first investment, and that did not go well. Actually, that was a bit of a disaster. It didn't really. I went with the wrong company. That's to be honest with you, that's what happened. I went with the wrong company. I won't name names, but it didn't work out. But I wasn't discouraged. I decided to sort of keep at it, and I think I heard about Spartan. Actually, so I was already invested in Alabama. My first investment in 2018 with that other company who shall remain nameless. They had me in a property in Alabama, in Montgomery, and so that's sort of when I started to get the idea that maybe Alabama was going to be a good market for me, especially coming from California, where we really don't have those opportunities. And I think I was just sort of researching other ways to invest in Alabama, other companies that were turnkey. That was important. And Spartan came up in that research, and then I started doing my due diligence and sort of investigating and talking to people, and I had a really good feeling the very first time I talked to. I talked to Danny Cole probably for the first time back in 2019, and yeah, like I said, I got a really good feeling about Danny, I was right, because then eventually I did go meet y'all in person in 2019, and I was right, and and I've been an investor ever since. So.
I love that, and that you've been with us for so long. So, were you able to come down and visit in 2018 when you purchased in Montgomery, or was your first visit in 2019? So, how off, hands
Yeah.
off were you for your first investment?
Yes, I took the leap in 2018 with that first property. That was in Montgomery,
Right.
and I had I had never been to Montgomery before, so that was a real, the whole thing was a real risk taking. For at the time, I thought this is, what am I doing here? It's Alabama's so far away, but that was in Montgomery, and then once I was sort of invested in the state, that started to motivate me. And I had actually been to Birmingham before, way
Ah.
like 20 years earlier. I'd been to Birmingham for a consulting project back when I'm independent now, but I used to work for IBM. And IBM Consulting had sent me to Birmingham 20 years ago, just before the Y2K problem, and I was there to work with some companies in Birmingham about how to fix their computers. At any rate, I had some familiar with Birmingham, so I felt like, all right, you know what, it's time to go visit again. And so I stopped in Montgomery. I met up with the property manager there, and then I went over to Birmingham, and I met Danny in person, Danny Cole. And we did the tour. I toured the property that was already invested in, and then I shopped for another property while I was there. So then in 2019, I ultimately bought two properties with Spartan.
So, and I guess just kind of, I'd love to know your perception. That's not really anything to do with Spartan Invest, just in general. But we have so many investors that come from California and Hawaii. They come to Birmingham. They're like, man, I just did not expect it to be like this. Were you surprised at all of the growth that you saw from Birmingham, from going, 20 years
Yeah.
prior to now? Because I mean, it's something that we try to showcase, but I think that that negative connotation is still deep with some people that are not from the South and never really come.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, I was really impressed with the growth in 2019 compared to when I visited 20 years earlier. Yeah, I was impressed with the growth. I was impressed not only with the growth, but I was sort of amazed that Birmingham wasn't better known and better utilized because it's got a good location. It's not too far from Atlanta and
Mm-hmm.
other locations. The downtown, it was still in transition, but I already saw sort of the medical complex there. And then I had heard about the universities, but I sort of started to realize that wow, there's actually quite a lot going on. And then um, yeah, and but the one thing that hadn't changed, I remember 20 years ago very clearly when I visited that the people were really friendly. I mean, they talk about Southern hospitality. It's kind of like a meme thing, but it's true. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
It's very true.
Southerners are nicer in general. So, in
Well,
my experience, I mean, I grew up in New York City, and now I live in California, but I'd still say Southerners are probably the nicest of all the people that I've been
Well,
around.
we love hearing that because it is something that we try to pride ourselves on, is that there's that is not just a myth of the Southern charm. It is something that we try to
Yeah, it's real.
implement and embody. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's great. That's great feedback. And you got to visit here recently too. So you've really
Right.
had a firsthand take on so much of the development, the population growth, the industrial growth, everything that is Birmingham. And so I think that's a really good vantage point for you that a lot of people probably don't ever consider or even will get to experience the all of the growth that we've had. So tell me just a little bit about your overall experience. And again, when you and I spoke, when you visited, I thought that this podcast episode was a great idea. I want your experience and I want your honest experience. I really do. If it's bad, if you want to say like, hey,
Yeah.
because I've got your, I know how your properties have performed and stuff, and so that's not everything is rainbows and butterflies, and so I want your truest
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
with
So,
Atlas and Spartan.
I mean, I could literally take over this podcast right now
Oh
with
man, I'm
just
just gonna kick my feet back then. I'm just
yeah.
gonna
You can just
relax.
relax. I got a lot to say, but I mean, I feel like I have a lot to say because I've been through the whole process several times. So going back, just if I could just go back, so 2019 was my first two investments that I made with Spartan, and then 2020 was still too early for me to tell how things were going to turn out. So I thought, all right, let me do some more investing in Alabama. I went back to Montgomery. You guys were not in Montgomery yet, but I wanted to just diversify a little bit. And and someone had recommended me another a property man, not a turnkey company, but just a regular property manager. And I thought, all right, you know, things are going well with Spartan. Why don't I see if I could pick up a couple of properties in Montgomery and do with a property manager. I had sort of by that time the whole Burr method had come to be very popular. The idea of buying something. I don't even remember what the acronym is, but you guys know what I mean. Burr, right?
Right.
So I
It's
thought, all
like
right, I'll buy a
buy,
couple.
renovate, resell,
Thank you.
refinance, or
Yeah,
it can mean either one, like rent,
right.
refinance, or resell. So
I was going to do that with two properties in Montgomery. That was my plan because I felt after a year with Spartan, I thought, all right, I'm getting into, now I'm learning how this works. So let me see if I could do a couple of burrs. Did that, bought two properties in Montgomery, but then the pandemic hit. And yeah, so I mean, I don't need to explain more than that. I mean, just the financing wasn't going to be working and the whole rehab thing wasn't going to be working. I wasn't going to be going there. And so, you know, the, the properties themselves, I still made money, on those. I did, buy them just before the pandemic had sort of inflated real estate prices. So I did make out in the end, but it wasn't, the Burr plan just went by the wayside because I realized I wasn't going to be able to do the refinance. And I just ultimately just sort of let them sit there. And then, the pandemic, as sort of many plans got put off. So I kind of just sat on at that time, 4 total properties in Alabama. And then in 2021, I decided to move from where I was, my first location in California, to my second location. I'll get to that later as far as what happened there. But
Yeah.
essentially, because of that took a lot of time out of my investing process too, because I had to move houses, and there was sort of, I bought a new house, and so I had to find a temporary house to live in. So I bought another house in California, and then another house in California. To at any rate, but the point is that eventually in this year I came back to investing again because things had settled down, and I sort of looked at how the portfolio was performing over the last. I get by this time it would have been 5 years. And I was like, this is working. Spartan is doing a good job here. Now, like you had said, be honest. Tell, all the, discuss all the goods and the bads and stuff like
Give us
that.
all the dirt.
All the dirt. I mean, uh, I've seen a lot of different things, like with my other properties, not the Spartan ones, but I had an eviction. I had like a big leak. I've had roof issues. I mean, you name it. I mean, I've experienced the gamut. And with the Spartan properties, I don't recall in those 5 years there was nothing that of that nature, And I think one of the reasons why is a couple of reasons. First of all, the Spartan rehabs are high quality. So whereas my other properties that I was going to do the burr on, I mean, I left myself open to lots of risks and possibilities there. Since the rehabs are solid, you don't have as much of those types of issues. I mean, you're getting all new appliances, right? So the chances of one of them breaks is less. You guys have a really good vetting process, so the chances of someone flaking on the rent and those issues, that's less. And so, 5 years doing an evaluation, I looked at it and I said, this is working. Spartan is going to be the way to go. And so that's why I was motivated to buy 2 more properties this year. I mean, I don't want to just say like, if you buy a Spartan property, it's guaranteed that it's going to be perfect for you. There's no such thing in life.
There's no
There's no
such
such thing.
thing. And I'm
There's no
so
such thing
happy
in life.
that you're saying that, this like hey asterisk, because we do try, especially I mean, you listen to the podcast. I genuinely try to be very honest and upfront. It's like there is a chance that you're going to have an eviction. There is a chance
Yep.
I mean, we've had lightning strike HVACs, I mean, those things
Yeah.
just can happen. So,
You can, I mean, you can hedge your bets with all, obviously, having good insurance, right, is one thing. You can, you know, like I said, with the Spartan rehabs, you're getting a fairly new everything. So, those risks are greatly reduced. And the other thing too is that, Spartan's doing their own, uh, I guess, which of the trades, as much of the trades as that you guys can do yourselves, you do. So you don't have, you kind of mitigate the risk in that as well, as far as costs and also responding to issues with. So all I can say is that there's no such thing as a guarantee, but in the properties that I had over those 5 years did perform well. Now I have talked to other people who said, well, there were these other things, but it sounded, from what I've heard, Spartan, you guys have been pretty good to resolve the situation. You don't. I think I can say this. There's no guarantees, but I can guarantee that Spartan's response will be fair. That's what I can say. I think you guys, have shown me that if there is an issue, it may not be 100% resolved, but you guys are going to try your best to make everybody happy. I mean, and you want people to
yeah,
return as investors. So you're always,
absolutely. And I love that. And that line was not rehearsed. that was not a line given that, and I do very much appreciate that too, because in the world of real estate, and experiencing with your Montgomery properties, that these things are just, they can happen. And again, and we're not perfect. There have been properties where the renovation, something slipped through and stuff like that. So we do genuinely try to address those as fair as possible, with the investor in mind, with the investor and tenant and employee at the forefront of all of our decisions, trying to take that mentality. Because you're absolutely right. Like, we are not perfect. We have messed up in all of the properties in the 13 to 14, goodness gracious, I feel really old saying how long we've been in business, but in all of those years, they're going to be properties that that have errors and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily the perfection that we're seeking. It's how it's handled when mistakes do happen.
And I'll just add one little analogy or thing that I've noticed about not just Spartan, I think, but the South in general, Southerners in general, and that is so. I work, for a living. I used to live in Tokyo, and I used to, I speak Japanese. I work with Japanese companies for a living, and in Japan there is this culture of like the customer first kind of, sort of customer service and how we treat customers, and there's like respect. This is something that I try to, because I deal with Japanese companies, I can tell, I know good customer service because I try to provide good customer service, and I try to, if I'm have a relationship with somebody, I try to respect the relationship, and I try to really make everything like a win-win. I feel like the culture in the South, and I see this in Spartan, is appreciation for the customer, trying to make things right, and sort of a, valuing the relationship. If I can make that, I mean, I don't know, So I've heard other people compare the Southern mentality to the Japanese mentality. It's just like I said, customer centric.
Yeah, absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that comparison. That speaks volumes about kind of, and it's a testament to what we genuinely try to do here. And again, perfection is unattainable, but that is the goal for us, and when we're looking out for our investors. So and I know that you recently just purchased a new construction house. You came back and after a few years and bought another renovated property and then a new construction property. I know you haven't owned them that long, so I'll be interested to see what your thoughts are, the comparison between your new build and your renovation. I'll be excited to hear how that goes for you. And but moving down the road, like 5 years, I mean, maybe even the next 3 to 5 years, what do you think your real estate investing goals are going to be? Like, how do you want to continue, or do you want to diversify, get more into multifamily, or what's kind of your long-term
So
goals?
yeah, so I have long term goals, but I also want to I have 3 points that I wanted to pass on to people that are listening, that are either thinking of investing in real estate out of state, or thinking of working with Spartan. Okay, this is what I would like to say. A common misconception with real estate is that it's you can live off of real estate, like you can, what is it, the fire movement, where you can just get all these cash flowing properties and you quit your job and
Yeah.
live life as a retiree at the age of 30. Yeah, not going to happen. Not going to happen. And not only is that not going to happen, if you live in any state that is like above the average expense wise, if you live in California, pretty much every state that has, I mean, it's very difficult to live off of cash flow from, at least in my experience, from single family homes. I mean, I guess if you build that portfolio big enough, you could. But here's the thing: if you get married and you have children, and then you live in an expensive state, or even a semi-expensive state, I just don't see that being possible. Now, and by the way, I have 3 kids, and 2 are college age, so like that was never even going to happen. Like I never
Right.
thought of real estate as a way to just quit doing consulting and to do. Because by the way, I love consulting, so I would never, it's a win-win for me. But I think the thing, real estate is not a short-term get rich quick thing. It's a long-term get rich slow kind of thing. It's get rich slow, and it takes decades to really pile up that wealth. So it's a good retirement strategy, I'd say. You buy these properties, you sit on them 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever your time horizon is, and then invariably after a couple of decades, these properties are going to be worth more, and you're going to have a lot of equity. The second point I wanted to make is that if you only have one or two rentals, it's not a portfolio, and so that instance or one event at one is going to seem like a big deal. If you only have two and one of them is having a roof problem, it's like, oh my god, my portfolio is tanking. You gotta build a portfolio so that one
Absolutely.
issue at one is not going to really make you upset. And none of us want to invest in real estate and have to worry about it. You want to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't love it when when I get a call that something's going on with one of my properties. I don't love it, but I go, all right, well, at least the other, in my case, four are doing okay, so I can ride this out. I can get through this. So anyway, point is, it's not a long term, and it's a multiple portfolio situation. Yep. And the last point I wanted to make was that it's also informative of many things. For me, working with a Spartan is especially it sort of by osmosis. I sort of absorbed a lot of the things that you need to do to be a good property manager. And why does that matter? Well, as I said earlier, during the pandemic, I decided to move, and the house that I was going to move in wasn't ready yet. So I had to find a temporary place for my family of 5 to live in. And we were like, all right, should we rent? Or should we buy something, or what should we do? And I was like, no, we're not renting. I feel like after what I've seen from Spartan, I feel like I could do this. I feel like I can get my own property. And when we vacate it, I think we can rent it out. I had to, obviously sell my wife on the idea, because, that would make us the property manager.
Uh-huh.
Until now, I just would let Spartan or, whoever handle it. But I felt like after that experience, I felt like, all right, we can do this. And fortune favors the bold. It was in the middle of the pandemic. We had to do our walkthroughs with masks on, and we had to it was kind of crazy, but we did it. We bought a temporary house, and got at that time, interest rates were down at 2.5%. So got the nice interest rate, and we got a renter right away. As soon as we left that house, we found a renter in California. Now, so that property is cash flowing in California, which is like an unheard of thing.
That is so rare. That is insane.
Yeah. But I wouldn't have had the confidence to do that if I hadn't been learning from those properties in Alabama. So right now I have a total of 4 with Spartan. I have my 1 property here in California. Going forward, you asked, what is my plan? Well, I think I'm going to keep going with Spartan as that, because I do have cash flow, from the 4 in Alabama plus the 1 here. I've got cash flow, and I'm going to use that cash flow to reinvest in properties in Alabama, unless something else happens, and who knows, right? No
Right.
one was expecting the pandemic. I think you always have to, if you're a real estate investor, you always have to have a little bit of, I guess, dry powder, because you never know. I mean, there could be opportunities in your neighborhood. There could be opportunities in other places. So if something else happens in California, and there's an opportunity, maybe I'll do California again. But for now, I'm going to use my cash flow to invest more in Alabama. I think maybe I'll try. I don't know. Maybe try Huntsville or I don't know. You've got other markets there on your
Right.
your
We're
so
we're
maybe I'll
in
try
we're
another region.
we're in like the Chattanooga area, and then the kind of the
Yeah,
North Georgia area. So definitely
I've seen
some
that.
options if you do want to diversify, which I love that you spoke on that too, because you've got a California property, then also a new construction, some renovations in the South. So you do have a pretty decent, diverse portfolio as you're starting. But
Yes.
I absolutely love the points that you said to investors, and having an investor that has taken the time, hey, only bought a couple and then waited a few years to see how they performed and then circled back. Talking about the common misconceptions or please don't quit your day job tomorrow after you buy a couple. If you please have a security blanket, because if those you need to have an amount set aside for if anything does happen. You definitely don't want all of your livelihood to be wrapped up and in your cash flow with just a handful of properties. And then what if they go into eviction or something like that happens? It's just a risk that we would never advise at all. And kind of making sure that you're informed and everything. I love all of those. So thank you so much for sharing that with our investors.
And I've even, I've tried to I'm not to be too much of an evangelist, as we say out here in California in tech speak, not to be too much of an evangelist for Spartan, but I really do feel like you guys, it's too bad more people don't know about about it. I've tried to talk to my other colleagues here in California that here and there. I've actually made some referrals to you guys in the past, but it's always the same. I always have to kind of walk them through exactly what I'm telling you. So that's why today I wanted to get on here and explain that those values. And I really do feel like real estate is everyone should have some if they're investing in stocks, if they're investing in any kind of assets, real estate should be in there
I
because
agree. Yeah.
of well, anyway, there are books, literally books written about the values of real estate, but I think it really does grow your wealth. And I'm not ready to retire yet. I may never retire. I don't know. But the point is, you gotta have something for when, for the future.
You do want to. And again, like you said, I wouldn't necessarily just do real estate. It's a majority of our investors, we advocate, and myself included. I have a rental property portfolio. I invest in a 401k. I invest in the stock market, so you want to still have that diversity just across your investments. But please, yeah, also include rental property, just because it is such a great vehicle for growing your wealth. Like you said, fortune favors the bold. I love that. So
Well, it's true. Yeah, I mean, and also there's the generational wealth aspect to it. I mean, if you have children, having assets like this, and I've tried so for my kids are still in college and they don't, they need to learn a lot about finance still. I'm trying to teach them, but it's kind of one of the things that I wish I'd started earlier. Like if there's anybody on this podcast that's young in their 20s or just starting out, I mean, get started right away. I've told my kids this already, and I don't know if I'll, whether they're going to get involved with my portfolio later on, but I just it's something that I think we all should take advantage of. It doesn't matter
yes,
from that first job. You house hack, right?
right.
You buy that. You buy whatever you can buy, a condo, townhome, whatever. You rent out the other rooms to your friends. They pay the rent. Essentially, they pay your mortgage. Before you know it, you've got equity, and then you just, that's going and then at the same time, once you start building up cash, there's Alabama is a market that I think most people can afford. I
Right.
don't believe, but yeah. So get started early. That's the other last point I wanted to make.
One of the neatest things talking about the younger generation is that Spartan Invest, we are at a lot of these real estate conferences talking about turnkey, and it's fantastic. Just over the years, in my experience, seeing more and more younger people at these conferences. Primarily it was in that age bracket was 40 plus, and it's just been great to see over the last couple of years that demographic kind of going down, and that we've been able to talk and connect to a lot of people in their 20s and 30s that realize the importance of starting young. And again, it's hard to reach younger people in a medium that talks about investing outside of social media, and hitting them with all of the information that's needed in short short reels. But assessing that audience has been really great to see it grow. Well, Tom, I mean that's all I've got. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your experience with Spartan Invest and Atlas Rental Property. I really appreciate it. All right, and that is On the House with Spartan Invest.